I know you've been working hard for several days. I know you're tired. Thank you for the work. The despicable acts that have happened in Day Hall, in the physics building, and on Walnut are hate speech that are not acceptable on this campus and must have serious consequences. The perpetrators have to be found. I understand that the students at whom these acts are directed will not feel safe on this campus, which should be their home, until that happens. I have been working with multiple law enforcement agencies today and all week to make sure every step that could be taken and should be taken to make this happen happens. I know that these events, these hate speech events, have brought to the surface issues in our campus environment that you've been working hard on. I came to hear about the progress you've made and to figure out what I do next from that. And so that's why I'm here. That's my statement for now, and I hope to hear from you.
Do you mind coming up here?
I'm staying here if that's okay. So.
I mean, they can make a path.
No, I'm going to be right here. Thanks.
Do you want a stool for you to
I'm a stander, so I'm fine right here.
So you said, all right, is it okay if you go through our list of demands?
Sure. Can you?
Sorry, can I just say something first? I just wanted. Oh, hi. Thank you for coming. I just wanted to say to the group that we want to do this in an organized and civilized way. Media is here. We are being watched. That's great. But let's just make sure that we don't get too rowdy and keep it respectful.
Kind of to follow up that, I also want to preface this forum with saying that there's a lot of pain in this room, there's a lot of hurt, and there's a lot of valid feelings in this room. I hope that you as Chancellor acknowledge that. I hope that you as Chancellor listen to that, and I hope that you as Chancellor take action. At the end of the day, we might get rowdy, we might get mad, but it's justified because we're constantly living on a campus that doesn't respect us and protect us. So while, yes, we need to control ourselves and watch who's watching us, at the end of the day, he is responsible for our student experience, and we need to hold him accountable to that.
Understood.
So moving forward, and to start this discussion, I just wanted to read to you, I don't know if you've read the mission statement, but I wanted to read it out loud for everyone to hear in case they haven't read it. Not again, our mission statement, hashtag not again SU, a Black-led student movement believes transparency from the administration is necessary. The safety of the students on this campus, specifically the safety of underrepresented and underserved students, is paramount. Not Again SU stands in solidarity with all groups and communities that identify with and for the movement. So, could you, for us, go through the list of demands?
Can I just say, I don't have the mission statement you just read, so if somebody could get that to me soon or today, that'd be helpful, because I'd like to refer to it. I have this set. Is this the right set?
No.
Or has this been revised?
No. Is it been revised?
Well, this has 5 long-term and then 4 additional, 5 short-term and 4 additional long-term. Is that the right?
So can we go through that list? Would you mind just taking the time to go through that list?
Please do.
No, I'm saying, can you go through
it? Okay, I go through it? Oh, so okay. So you just want me to read them aloud?
Yes,
or so?
And then, wait, I'm sorry, after you read it, can you also tell us where you are at in the process of achieving that goal? Of,
yeah.
Like, you know, what you're doing to make sure that that demand is actually met? Telling us what is the next step?
Yeah, so I can read them. I have read them. And I understand that you've been debating and discussing these as well and working with people the last couple days on them. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So I would like to hear any evolution in terms of where you are or not, or where you think the blockages are on each of these. So maybe I could stop after each one and hear about that. Would that be possible? So the first one is to expel any student involved with the hate crimes committed on November 7th, 2019 in Day Hall. I don't want to be legalistic in discussion of all this. So the first thing to emphasize is hate speech is a very serious act that has serious consequences for the safety of our students. And therefore, it should be taken very seriously in the student conduct proceedings. My understanding is the student affairs staff and the judicial affairs staff is prepared to move very quickly on this to appropriate serious penalties. My understanding also is that it is actually harmful to imposing those penalties for me to announce a decision in advance on them. That actually that might make it difficult for serious penalties to be imposed.
All right, with that being said, we put that out there because this is supposed to be a zero tolerance campus, right? We said, it says in the zero tolerance statement that if anybody goes against it, you will be taking extreme measures. After what happened, we didn't know, no one came out and told us what's going on, what's next, what happened to the person who actually did it. They could be in class with me, they could be sitting next to me when I'm, just eating. We don't know what's going on, we want to make sure that the zero, policy is actually being directed.
Yeah. So it seems like there's two elements of that. Can I respond to those? And then, so the first is transparency, okay? And I just want to acknowledge again, as I tried to acknowledge Monday, that there is a serious cost to delay in communicating about a hate speech incident, particularly to the students at whom it's directed. And that serious cost is to students who can't take precautions that they would take if they knew what they were dealing with, and it's a serious cost of trust to the whole system, okay? I am aware of that. I am very concerned that a protocol be developed so that these things are communicated immediately, especially to the whole community and those who need to know about them. I'm happy to see the notice coming quicker now. I want that institutionalized. But the second part and the core of your question is about zero tolerance for hate speech. And is this a zero tolerance campus for hate speech? First of all, it should be crystal clear in all our documents and all our policies and all our orientation that this campus and Syracuse University values are utterly inconsistent with hate speech, and there have to be serious consequences when it occurs. I agree. Exactly how that is implemented is something that I think you all have been working on, and I've been working on to understand too. And so I hope that's a very concrete action step that's going to come out of these discussions this week.
All right, so you said that you're going to be looking over the policies and revising them, correct? Who will be revising these with you? Are there people of color on these revising committees? Who's actually revising them? So
the student conduct policies are administered in the first instance through the Division of Enrollment in the Student Experience. The Dean of Students, Marianne Thompson, I see over there, has been engaged in it. That revision process and review process to make sure that they're strong and clear enough will be administered in the first instance there, but I am responsible as Chancellor of the university, so I am going to be watching it very closely.
Can we move to the next demand?
Yeah. Can I ask a quick question? So in my 4-year series, there have been multiple instances of hate speech, so I'd like to ask you how your policy has changed based on those incidents, and how you would hope for them to change differently, I guess, based on this one.
Yeah, so, boy, that's a good question. So you're asking me how my views and how Syracuse University policies have evolved in 4 years because of multiple incidents. And I'm responsible for this university. I've learned, first of all, that there is a lot of racism and hate in the world, and I can't give complete immunity at all times to everybody from it. But my job is to work as best as possible to have the right policies in place so people know this is not a safe zone for hate speech to occur. That said, what have I learned? There are some people who have asserted very strongly to me that there is a hazy, unclear line between free speech and hate speech. Okay, I'm not going to take a position on that at the moment, but what I've learned is a racial or anti-Semitic epithet in somebody's bathroom, anonymously posted. Is there anyone here who thinks it's hard to say what side of the line that is on? Okay, I believe that the vast majority of incidents of hate speech are not hard calls, okay? And that we should give people the confidence throughout the system that the not hard calls can be moved on swiftly and effectively and with real consequences. And if that's taken a while for me to learn, I'm not perfect. But at Syracuse University, we got to get better. And it's something I've certainly seen this time.
So it has been brought to all of our attention, and I want it to be brought to everyone's attention that I understand you have the demands. The demands have been, certain demands have been revised. I have the revised list. So I'm going to read the demands, and I think the purpose of this section is specifically to understand where you are as a chancellor in addressing each demand. We have a section for questions at the end, so let's save it for the end because then we'll be here all day. So.
Okay, and I may, on some of them, because I don't know what the revisions are, I may need to say, tell me more about the revision, but
yes,
go ahead.
Absolutely. So we already addressed the first demand. Demand number 2 is create an open forum for students to share their student experience and express the expectations of their university to the Board of Trustees of Syracuse. Could you tell us where you are with that?
Yeah, even before I became aware of these incidents, the Student Association had made precisely this request. And we raised it with the Board of Trustees in their meetings on Thursday. And the Student Affairs Committee of the Board of Trustees, which includes a lot of trustees, agreed to work with Student Association to make exactly this happen. So I think this one is an open door. I agree to it, and I will, any help that you need from the Chancellor to make this one happen, I will give.
Okay. So demand number 3 is SEM 100 reform led by students and support from faculty to curate a curriculum that accurately addresses diversity issues in the 21st century and how they are influenced by history and in some ways incorporate history.
So here's where I am on this. First of all, when I received this one, a version of this one earlier in the week, I asked a lot of questions about the status of SEM 100 reform. What I've learned is I've learned more about the temporary course that's being offered and the curriculum process for the permanent course that's being proposed through the schools and colleges and with the University Senate. I've also learned that there are many faculty who care deeply about this and deeply about the concerns that have been voiced. I have not experienced faculty conscientious objectors from trying to get this done. To the contrary, many faculty have stepped forward. I do know that there is profound unhappiness among many students about the temporary course, and I've heard that in reports from students and participants in this event. It is my assumption that I will be speaking about this with the University Senate on Wednesday of next week. And it is also my assumption that conversations need to occur with the deans of the schools and colleges as well, since some curriculum is controlled within each school and college. So I'm committed to making those conversations happen.
So So demand number 4 has been revised, and it is to institute a clause in new faculty and staff contracts that requires mandatory diversity training as well as new diversity hires. So could you tell us where you are with that?
And so the revision is and new diversity hires. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's two parts of that: mandatory diversity training and new diversity hires. Right. So
yes.
yeah. And so let me speak to the first part, which is what I've been educating myself and concerned about. The answer to the first part is yes. I don't know what more to say other than yes. And I think we've learned a lot about training from our experience with sexual harassment and sexual violence training, which every single employee of the university, faculty, student, and staff, student workers even, have had. I think we've learned what works well and what doesn't work well from that. I think there's a wide range of quality in diversity training, so I'm eager to work with people to identify on the faculty. If the faculty are not involved, regardless of anything else, it will not be effective. So I'm committed to work with the faculty on that. I do believe some of this already occurs. So when I read the demand, I was a little concerned that it's also a comment on the quality of what we're doing now. So I need to delve deeper into that and hear from people more on that. The second part of it was additional diversity hires. I have had a brief conversation with our interim provost coming in January, John Liu, on this subject. I know that he is deeply committed to this. I know that the devil is in the details of this and in the conversations and the inclusion in the process. That's all I know new since I learned of that amendment.
So thank you for giving us a straightforward answer about yes or no. I know that that's a big thing. But to kind of press that, I understand your answer is yes, you want to and you are going to do all in your power to implement those changes, but how is, I think, the question that we're really interested in. What steps are being taken? Well,
first of all, many people thought it would not be possible to get every single staff member, faculty member of the university to do sexual harassment and sexual violence training on a short deadline. And all I'll say is it happened, okay? And we learned a lot about how to make it happen, so I'm going to learn from that experience. The other part of the how is how do you make sure the content is effective? And my belief in that is first I need to understand in depth what we're doing now and what's ineffective about it. And then we have to design what we do next, learning from what isn't working, right? We can take best practices from other places, but I think we have to learn what isn't working and we have to involve the faculty in it.
Okay, so moving on to demand number 5, which was also revised. We said revise the current anti-harassment policy to a zero tolerance policy for all hate speech. Could you tell us where, I understand you kind of spoke on that earlier, but could you explain to us specifically where you are with that?
Well, my understanding, again, is the Division of Enrollment and Student Experience and Marianne Thompson have started reviewing that. I believe they think there could be greater clarity at multiple points in the current policy, both in terms of definitions and consequences, and that they expect to produce a revised version of it, in part out of these conversations fairly quickly. Is that correct?
Yes, and more Hi, this is Marianne. Yes, and more conversations that involve lots of groups of people. I'm a firm believer that if people don't trust the process, we need to fix the process. And so I want to work with as many people as want to work with me to get our conduct process in the place that everyone feels like it's just.
So now we're moving on to demand number 6. I just want to preface saying that we have done a lot of revision of the specific demand. We have gotten a lot of comments on the specific demand. I do want to note, before I say the demand itself, is the general consensus is that Black students and we're talking specifically on the behalf of Black students, may feel safer and better rooming with other Black students rather than saying the same race has an implementation of a profile system or a portal system that includes interests as well as race. We want to advocate for this portal, and that basically looks like college professional roommate portal, and people have the option to, whether you self-identify as whatever you self-identify with, you have the option to pick someone who could be the same ethnicity, has the same interests as you, has the same race as you. We want it to be an option. So changing that rhetoric, we don't advocate for same race, we advocate for creating a safe environment for Black students to feel like they are safe to be Black.
So first let me validate the concern, and then let me confess that I'm trying to learn more about. This is the one number that I have the most ignorance of as of Monday. Okay, so I've talked to multiple students. I've talked to multiple students since Monday who described the experience of having a roommate who they had reason to fear, good reason to fear, harbored views of racism toward their roommate, okay? And the effect that had on their ability to do their work and to be at home at Syracuse University. So this isn't a hypothetical concern for me, but it is one I've learned about this week, okay? I am trying to learn about how the roommate selection process works at Syracuse and could work better. I haven't had much time to work on this one, so I don't know. All I can do at this point on this one is say I've heard the concern and I validate it. It seems to me we can improve the process of roommate selection. I need the experts on it to also work on the details so there aren't unintended consequences.
I also want to, before we move on from this, I also want to mention something that was brought up to the entire group, through the entire group, of the want for more multicultural learning communities. The fact that we only have one on campus for all students, and it's one floor, we find to be problematic. We are advocating for more multicultural floors, whether that be in every single dorm, or whether that be multiple floors in multiple dorms. We want more. So, and beyond freshman year specifically, because we do have a 2-year minimum of staying on campus housing.
So let me just say that while there is a housing study going on this year to make comprehensive suggestions for revision of housing, and that is motivated in part by concerns about the student experience and the degree to which all students are welcome and feel welcomed on this campus, and safety and security. This recommendation may be one that needs to address earlier, because the housing study isn't supposed to produce final recommendations until May, and therefore would be unlikely to be implementable by the fall. Okay, so I'm just looking at the folks who do housing who are here, and just suggest that to make progress on this recommendation may require not saying we're going to figure out in the housing study, but what are we going to do now? I also want to highlight that sometimes interim measures, like SEM 100 in the small version, can be problematic too, while we're working on a long-term solution. So I'm concerned that there be some attention and care on this one now.
Just my little. Yeah, and we just want to make sure that this is lineated as a long-term deal. Only because this is going to continue if we don't address it as something that's long-term. For demand number 7, we said to agree to hire more counselors that better represent all marginalized identities on campus, and more counselors with language fluency before the fall 2020 semester begins. Allow students to select their own counselor, and enhance any current diversity and inclusion training, mandatory for both new and current counselors. So that's our revised demand number 7.
I want to revise. There was Can I get you to read that one
Yes.
one more time so I can give a
One.
concise answer?
So the first part of it is to agree to hire more counselors that better represent all marginalized identities on campus. The second part of it is to have more counselors with language fluency before fall 2020 semester begins. The third part of it is to allow students to select their own counselor. And the fourth part of it is to enhance any current diversity and inclusion training, mandatory for both new and current counselors.
So, with the only possible exception of picking your own counselor, because I need to know how that would work if everybody picked the same counselor, for example. With the possible exception of that, I think the answer to that should be yes. Okay, the answer to the parts of that, and so my belief is, unless somebody comes up with a really strong argument, I have heard from multiple international students about the language ability issue. I certainly have heard about the desire for more diversity and inclusion training, and just the need for more counselors. I've heard, and I think people are working on it. But so again, with respect to, I don't know how the guaranteeing you pick your own counselor would work, but with respect to the rest of that, my belief is the answer should be yes.
So demand number 8 is to agree to the development of a building for multicultural offices, including scholarship offices, organizations, and programs, moving the existing offices for students of color to this new location.
And so this is going to be a process that I need engagement of the right group, including the participants in this event. There is going to be a lot of space freed up on this campus, including in Central Campus, as new buildings come online. At the end of that stage of people moving around, it is my belief that the Campus Facilities Advisory Board, the Facilities Department, campus planning, all the folks involved should be able to achieve the goal here. I don't know whether that goal is best achieved in a standalone building, as part of another building, or what spaces are available, but I think that people should be involved in picking the best option. And that I'm committed to having a process to do.
Okay. So we, demand number 9, agree to the allocation of at least $1 million for the creation of a unified required curriculum that educates on diversity issues, specifically anti-racism.
So it's my belief that this is what the curriculum process has been working toward in part. It's my understanding that views about that process that were shared in some parts of the university did not reach the levels of the people actually responsible for planning the course at the university level. And so that has to happen. It's my belief that the required staffing and resources for such a course are not going to be under $1 million. Okay. And that the resources have to be found to do it in the right way. I'm committed to finding the resources necessary to do it in the right way.
In terms of, I just wanted to follow up on that. In terms of looking at the appropriate resources and all of that, I don't know.
Well, I mean, so I just need to say the truth, which is that curriculum change that does not deeply involve the faculty never succeeds, right? Curriculum. So what seems to be needed here is curriculum involving the faculty that is inclusive and involves a productive dialogue with the students affected.
So my question was more about, like, in terms of processes, right? And we're asking about the how. I understand you're saying that that's the goal, but in terms of logistics, like, is there any logistics that can be, just goes about the process, not to say about, and to say about where you guys are at in the process?
And my answer to you all is yes. I'm not the best person to do it because it actually involves processes in each school and college and then in the University Senate. There's a curriculum committee that reports to the full University Senate, of which students are representatives and members, including on the committees. That process is fairly well defined and fairly unique in each school and college. You have to think of it like the European Union and the different customs in Germany versus Greece and Scotland versus Spain. So there's a different process within each school and college that comes together through the curriculum committee to the University Senate. I can commit to having that articulated better for you, but I want to work with the people who actually do it so I'm accurate. If I tried to summarize it right now, I would profoundly offend the faculty of one college by focusing on a different college inaccurately for their college.
And for our last demand, we are asking for immunity for all students involved in the movement.
So I think I understand that one, but tell me more about that.
Immunity meaning, yeah, so the immunity, essentially, we are referring to possible sanctions that can be carried out on students for violating certain codes of conduct by being here today. We were told that certain codes or sanctions could be carried out. There was a threat of it possibly being carried out if we stayed here. That was what was told to us. We want to address that to you, and we want to hear where you are and if you have anything to say about it.
Yeah, so I don't know the details, but I will just say my view is that participation in a peaceful protest, given the events that have happened and the dialogue that needs to continue, should not be subject to any discipline.
Okay. So essentially, what we are going to be asking of you is we will be giving you a printed out and updated list of these demands, and what we're asking of you is to sign that list of demands and give it back to us by November 20th, 5 p.m. And that way we can trust that we will be holding the school accountable for those demands being met.
And as you've heard, I'm capable of giving concise answers. And sometimes I have to say, this is what we can do and this is the process that follows. I promise a response on each demand by that deadline.
And for you to sign it.
And signed by me. I'll put my seal on it. So this is my responsibility, so I own this.
Okay, so I just want to make clear, thank you for addressing that. I want to make clear that we will be staying here in Barnes Center until that date.
Can I say something in response? So I just want to repeat what I said, because I heard, so I said participation in a peaceful protest while working on these issues should not be subject to discipline, certainly up to that date, okay? I am worried from past experience as Chancellor here and past distrust that the conviction is I am personally just trying to wait people out for a vacation, right? So if you want to know what I've learned from this last set of incidents is this problem is going to be here after vacation too, right? These incidents, I don't expect there are not going to be hate speech incidents on this campus ever again. So we need something concrete and rapid responsive communication on all these issues, so that, because again, it's an interesting world we're living in, and this is part of it. So I do expect you all should understand, I'm not unrealistic that there is racism and anti-Semitism and hostility to immigrants and that it is occasionally expressed, including on this campus. So what I think after November 20th, what has to change is the response has to be quick, clear, transparent, comprehensively communicated, and we have to not be afraid that people will think badly of us if we're being honest about what's going on and dealing with it. And that's what has to change.
How can we ensure that you're going to actually go through with this? Because this happened again and again and again, and it took you a while to get here. Like, why did you have to wait until now to come? Like, this issue been happening.
I want to, and you know, this is a good segue. I want to address certain questions that we all as a collective have come together to ask you now that we have time with you to speak to you directly. So one of the questions are, okay, here's
My name is Destiny Rodriguez. I'm a sophomore currently in Fall College studying Human Development and Family Sciences. Like she had previously stated, we had all come with an agreement to ask these 5 questions, and we have scripted them for you. So our first question is, can we please have an emergency meeting with the Senate committee?
With the Senate Curriculum Committee, you mean? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, I will talk to Marcel Haddix, who chairs the Agenda Committee today, and request that.
And will you get back to us in a timely response possibly?
I'll get back to you as soon as I talk to Marcel. Marcel is an excellent Agenda Committee chair. She's been deeply involved in communicating with senators about these issues all week. I think this one's probably an open door.
Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Oversight. I'm a fifth-year industrial interaction design student. My question is, do you believe you have adequate resources within the university and its reach to tackle and answer to our demands? If not, how will you allocate time, energy, and more resources until this problem is fixed?
So resources means time, people, and money. Okay, money is not a problem, right? This is a problem. Yeah. So time means the right people whose bandwidth is dedicated to this, and I think we may need more resources there, as you've heard, you know, for example, counselors. So that's, I think, what we need to focus. Do we have the right people with the right assignments?
Hi, so this university has never been a campus where marginalized groups have felt safe, and with 3 racially motivated hate crimes occurring in the past week, I've never felt so unsafe so quickly, and I'm a freshman here, and I went to a predominantly white boarding school in New England. So my question is, what are you doing to prevent this hostile environment so I can thrive as a college student?
Well, so I think in some ways we've been talking about that specifically. I do think that immediately the highest priority is, my view of the highest priority right now is there are students living in Day Hall and students on this campus who don't know for sure whether someone who is willing to say hateful hate speech is going to carry it out in action. Okay, that's the immediate concern. Okay, so first of all, in terms of highest priority, that's the highest priority. I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the most important thing to make folks feel safer immediately is for that perpetrator or perpetrators to be identified and dealt with, so you don't have to worry about it.
And I hope to prevent this issue. We don't let those students in our next classes, like in the class of 2024, 2025, or whatever. So in order to prevent this issue, we cannot let those people in.
Hello, my name is Jay Nash. My question is about representation. So from my experiences on this campus, there are certain organizations set to kind of be liaisons between higher up administration and students. I think that from what I've seen, a big issue is that oftentimes students in this room don't feel represented by those organizations. So what do you think is the best way that we as students can kind of get more involved in the organizations set to advocate for us? And what do you think that you can do as Chancellor and administration more broadly to make the organizations set to represent us be effective in that goal?
Okay, so could you hear that in back? So I can I? Okay, I'm just going to quickly summarize the question and then tell me if I got it right. Okay, basically, what are we going to do about the fact that in significant times, student organizations representing students aren't felt to be adequately communicating and representing the interests of students in issues like this? And what do I recommend you all do about that going forward?
And what do you think that you can do to assist us in getting more representation in the organizations designed for us to get representation in?
Well, so the first easiest answer is that shared governance is a robust history at Syracuse University, both with faculty and with students. And it is important for me to respect student shared governance, including at the graduate student level and the Student Bar Association and the undergraduate level. So the first thing is the vast majority of students do not vote or participate in the Student Association, in the Graduate Student Organization, or the Student Bar Association. So the first thing you can do is participate and educate for people how to. That would be helpful. The second thing is that I do think it is vital that we meet regularly and consult with the duly elected student bodies, but that is a necessary, not a sufficient condition for being informed about what the student views are on issues affecting them. It has to involve the Residence Hall Association, the largest student organizations, the student organizations most directly impacted. And that requires a deep web of relationship with the leaders of student organizations that starts not in December, when we may finally figure out which student organizations and what their offices are, but it has to start right at the beginning of the year, right? So one thing that would be helpful to me is for student organizations to identify their liaisons and leaders clearly and early and insist on engagement opportunities and identifying which ones are most helpful.
And what do you think you can do as an administration to help students do that?
I can ask the leadership in the Division of the Enrollment and Student Experience to examine carefully the methods of engagement with student organization leadership and to suggest reforms and changes. And I am going to do that.
Hi, I'm Josh. I'm a senior political science and co-major, and I'm deeply worried about curriculum going forward. I know you've committed to curriculum change in the abstract, but specifically, I want to know what you are committed to doing for first-year students. I believe that students that get here are grossly under-equipped to deal with issues of race, especially in a country whose high schools are as segregated today as they were in the 70s. So you, specifically, as a person, have you been to freshman seminars? What do you think specifically is wrong with our current curriculum? And in an ideal world, what faculty would you get involved? Who would you trust to deal with these issues going forward? And I certainly hope there are people of color on that list. Thank you.
So the question is, have I been to freshman seminar? No. I have talked to many of the teachers, many students about their experience, and I've read the materials. Okay, I believe there is a wide range of approach and experience and training for the people teaching it. I know there's been some systematic training, but judging by the students I talked to, the experience ranges widely. You asked me what I'm going to do about it. Is that right? What do I commit personally to do about it? And I guess what I commit personally to do about it is to use this situation as an opportunity to create urgency for this job to get done. Okay? It is not the case that I can order a curriculum as Chancellor, and it has never been the case that the Chancellor can do that. It is the case that it is appropriate that the faculty at Syracuse University, the faculties, oversee the curriculum and degrees. And I defer to that. And I don't want to mislead you. I've seen very bad things happen when administrators try and direct the curriculum over the faculty in various units. That said, we have a situation of multiple incidents in the last 10 days. And those incidents, it seems to me, create an environment where almost all faculty should understand the urgency to address this. I think we need to use that with the Senate, with the deans, and with the curriculum committee, and I will urge that upon.
So moving forward, we are going to open the floor up to 6 questions that were not scripted questions, so that everyone feels like their voices are heard. So.
Hi, my name is Chelsea Clemens. I'm a junior, major psychology, minor real estate. Sure. I believe it's within all of our understanding that there's going to be racist people who do racist things all over. I think the true problem is how the situation and previous situations were handled, especially by DPS officers. We understand from the reports from Day Hall residents that DPS advised them to keep the incident quiet at first. The DPS officer who spoke at the previous forum said it could be a possible hate crime. You said it plainly that it's not hard to determine that these are hate crimes. So my specific question is, will there be any repercussions towards the DPS officers who handled the Day Hall situation?
So let me take this one piece at a time, okay? Because there's some packed in there, and let me then come back to you and ask you which part I missed. I'm going to take this one piece at a time, okay? So I just want to repeat. There are some situations, sure, out there in the world that are arguable whether they're free speech or hate crimes. I don't think most of the ones that have occurred on this campus are hard. So that suggests we need to educate lots of people, including our DPS officers, that it is okay and safe to call things what they are, okay? Second, you asked about discipline for DPS officers. I don't have enough information yet to know exactly what happened and when to assess whether something was done wrong, okay? I do commit to figuring that out. I have been concerned about the delay in reporting, and I am concerned, as I've heard, I think for the first time from you, if people were told to keep things quiet, okay? And in particular, what I want to say there is, and what I do think has changed in the last week because of your work here, what I think has changed is the realization that while there may need to be some delay from the discovery of a hate crime to make sure we're honoring privacy and preserving evidence, that delay should be as brief as possible, and the communication about it should be as general as possible. The important thing in such a situation is for people to know the facts so they can act accordingly. The important thing is not the reputation of the university or hushing something up. That's what I've learned.
Hi, my name is Maybe. I'm a freshman. I don't know if you watched footage. I have 2 questions of this protest so far, but I heard some of your best, your brightest, and your most involved students crying and screaming and begging about the lack of financial aid for students of color, especially for HEOP, SSS, and POSSE students. I'm wondering if you can commit to allocating the necessary funds to make sure that students of color, with a specific interest of seniors of color, who have been extremely involved in this campus and doing the legwork that the university has not done to make this campus inclusive, to make sure that they graduate, their financial holds be lifted, and you make sure that these people on this campus have the funds to succeed.
So I have followed the discussions. I've been briefed regularly about the discussions going on here, including the financial aid concerns. I think I just need to stop and say again, you said some of our best and brightest students are here today.
Yeah.
I would say some of our best and brightest and most committed students are here. Because best and brightest does not a great citizen make. Okay, so I just want to say, recognize that. This is hard. This is a miserable time of year for you to have to do this. So you're asking in return that financial aid pay attention to this, particularly for the seniors, to make sure you graduate.
Yes.
Right? So I have heard that request. Okay, I am going to carry it back to our people in financial aid, and I will watch it closely. Right? It is an individual circumstance, and there's a privacy issue, but it ought to be raised.
Yeah. Okay, my second question is regarding diversity in the transfer system, specifically for Newhouse, where you know that these people are graduating into high positions of power. What are you doing to make sure that not just GPA is looked at when people transfer into Newhouse, women, all those things, but diversity is included, because many students of color are not included into those places of privilege on campus?
So, thank you for the question. After concerns about the campus climate for students of color, the most frequent thing people complain to me about on this campus is transfers, inter-university transfers. And I hear about that across the board from international students, students of color, all sorts of students, okay? This is the first time the diversity element of it has been brought to my attention, okay? I just want to be honest. It's never been presented with diversity, even data accompanying, so I need to look at that. I have worked with a pretty wonderful team in enrollment management to pay attention to diversity in so many other areas. Inter-university transfers are often handled at the school level, like in Newhouse. So it strikes me that this is an education effort and a decision effort that needs to be faced.
Right, but super quick. I know this is the first time this has been brought up to you, but this young man has been fighting for this for years.
Say again? Which?
It's all right.
Okay, sorry.
Can I speak to
Right.
the
Okay.
We have a question over here. And yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because there are people over here, there are a lot of people over here. We don't want to ignore you guys. So if there's anybody who has a question, I don't want to neglect this side. Please, try as hard as you can so that you can come up so I can see you.
So, I'm going to meet with another group of affected students in 3 minutes, so I have time for 2 more questions.
Yes, that's as many questions that we have.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you. My name is Ellery Bryan. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs. I am graduate faculty in transmedia in the School of Visual and Performing Arts. The culture that allows actions of violence and discrimination to exist in the student body exists in the faculty. There is very little transparency that allows for feedback from students to see actual change in their instructors. There are reviews at the end of the semester, and as someone who has received those reviews, there are almost no actions ever taken based on those reviews. I know for a fact, because my students talk to me, because I am a member of my community, that there are issues with other faculty members in transmedia and in the school at large that are never addressed because there is no agency given to students and there are complaints against those faculty. What do you plan to do to make this more transparent so that our faculty reflect the values that our students have, even the tenured faculty?
So I was a dean for 16 years, and I dealt with similar issues at each school where I was a dean. So the first answer to your question is the deans need to know this. But you asked what I would do, okay? And first of all, I do believe that a standard format for evaluations of faculty by students in every course in the university that includes diversity and inclusion, and that the deans review systematically, would help. Okay, it still requires people to act on what they learn, but I think it would help. My belief is that there is work going on this year, including with the University Senate. I will report on this to the University Senate on Wednesday.
Administration needs to make certain that faculty do change their actions. There needs to be more than a 3-hour diversity training. There need to be transparent consequences.
I just want to say, I thank you for your time. There is one more question that we have, and then we're cutting this. I understand that everyone has a lot of questions for the Chancellor, but we are on a time crunch.
Email him, bro. You gotta email.
So we talked throughout this week about the resources and the places where students of underrepresented groups feel comfortable, and places like OMA and places like the LGBT Resource Center, the places like the Slut Center that have been continue and will continue to decrease funding if you don't do direct action with it. How do you guarantee that there will be more money allocated to these resources and these places on campus that are actually making students feel comfortable?
I am aware of no plan to cut resources to these centers. I am supportive of these centers, and I suspect and will be committed to increasing resources available to them. And I believe the entire Department of Enrollment and the Student Experience would agree with me on that.
Could you speak up? Could you just repeat what you said, because I know people can hear you.
You want me to say that again?
Yes.
I am aware of no plan and would not support any plan to decrease resources for these centers based on the experience, the reported experience of our students. I believe the entire Department of Enrollment and the Student Experience would agree with me on that, and I'll just pay attention to that in budgeting.